Good? Okay. So did we get to this? We got stock market boom. We got here. All right, good. So who was the Secretary of Treasury for all three Republican presidents of the 1920s? Yeah, Andrew Mellon. Andrew Mellon was the Secretary of the Treasury, and what was his economic program called? Yeah, trickle-down economics. And today, what is it called? It's not conservative so much, even though it is the essence of conservative economics today. But what is it called? Because you want to basically put money in the hands of those who produce goods, or what is the term for that? Someone said it. Yeah. Supply side economics. By the way, what would liberal economics be called then? It's named after the inventor, an economist, Keynesian, of course. I know you're thinking, oh yeah, Keynes. But liberal economics would be demand side, just the difference. So supply side. And that is government action to put money in the hands of the wealthy, and what would they do with this money? Yeah, make factories, which will increase what? Production and what? Jobs. Jobs will mean more demand, and that's how the economic engine of conservative economics go. Supply creates demand. So the rich help them out more, and they will do the rational thing because they know how to engineer wealth, and they know better than other people. There's that element. That's definitely the way Mellon felt. And some of the government action. First off, what kind of regulation did they really want to get rid of, especially Mellon? This was actually called Mellonism. What is the anti-monopoly regulation called? Yeah, antitrust, that weird American system. Yeah, that was Mellonism. But other regulations too, like worker safety, that kind of thing, because those are costs. And what's the name that I give you where in bad economic times to help the poor or to help people who are retired, you're too old to work, but still alive. In fact, they would say too old to work and too young to die. Say it again. Well, that's what's the retirement program in the United States called? Social Security. But what does it call for unemployment insurance, retirement, but it also could be like health care? Yeah, the safety net. How did conservative economics feel about safety net? No, because what does that do to wages? Yeah, it bumps wages up, gives more bargaining power to workers. So that's trickle-down economics. Oh, led to two speculative booms. We have this one. What's the other speculative boom besides Florida real estate? The stock market. So, and banks push speculation. Banks make a lot of money off of speculation. They can charge higher interest rates every single time that a bank loans money, they collect a fee. So if you know anything about banks, they collect fees on everything. They collect fees. The person who made it gets a commission. They make money off of that. So banks push speculation. So here we have the Florida boom. That would bite them. And here's the stock market boom with the bull market. He still has the star from Florida. And one thing about it is speculative bubbles mean death. But remember, if there's a bubble, aka boom going on, how long will the boom last? It's never going to end. By the way, there'll always be a few people who will sell just before it happens and make out like bandits. We'll see that with the stock market boom. But let's get to the stock market crash. So by 1929, the profits were already dropping. Remember, the country was already in a recession. Profits were dropping because prices were dropping. Now, people buy stock for two main reasons. The first one is for a long-term investment. Do you remember the term for that little piece of the profit that stockholders get as based on the percentage of the stock they have? You remember that term for that little piece of profit? Do you remember that term? It begins with a D.
Dividend.
Yeah, dividend. The little hint. By the way, once we said dividend, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. They're like, no, I don't remember that. Okay, I sympathize. But the dividend is that little piece of the profit that you get from the stock. That's a long-term investment. But more and more people by 29, you see this in every bubble, are speculating. They're hoping to buy it low, assuming that the value will go up and they can sell. And what usually makes the value of stock go up is that the company's profitable. That means higher dividends, or people are going to want that stock, it's making money. So what's happening to the value of stock? What would you rationally think would happen if profits are generally dropping for most companies? It would go down. Stock value didn't go down though, because people are thinking, oh, it's just going to be momentary, because how long do bubbles last? Forever. The stock is just dropping a little bit. What should we do? Buy now, so the stock value, we'll take advantage of the stock value going up again. This is why you get the bubble expanding to its greatest amounts when the recession has already begun. And it seems totally counterintuitive, but the allure of easy money, of making money without work, is so huge. So this is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Now you might see that they'll talk about the Dow. In fact, we should look at the Dow right now, because this is just simply a ratio of the 30 biggest corporations and what their stocks are trading at. It's just a mathematical formula. Don't read too much into it. There's been inflation combined with it's easier to buy and sell stocks because of computers, so the number's a lot higher. It had a record at 381 at this time. That's what the ratio hit. It is just a snapshot of 30 stocks. Yeah, right now it's at 37,736, that ratio. Don't read too much into it. It's just simply a ratio. There's been a lot of inflation. But what it means is these 30 stocks are selling a lot, and the prices are going up. It doesn't tell you all the stock market. It is just simply a snapshot of 30 leading stocks. And you'll see there's other versions like the S&P or Standard & Poor's. They do the 100 leading stocks, the 500 leading stocks, things like that. But this just gives you an idea how the stock market is doing. The recession is already going in. It was at its highest when profits were already dropping. So with that, October 24th, stocks were about this level here, and then we have what's called Black Thursday. A crash in the stock market, a terrible decline as stock values dropped dramatically. And so what that meant is that people thought they had money and it dropped. And this actually created quite a panic. They went on what's called a bank holiday, 3 days where they shut off trading. And they said, okay, we're not going to do it. We're going to get time for people to calm down. Calm down. Today, they do it automatically. There's stopgap methods in the stock market where if stocks are trading too fast, the computers were shut down and they'll quit trading stock. So they have that built into the system now. They didn't have that then, so they took 3 days off. And that weekend, the government and also business leaders came out and reassured people. Hoover went on the brand new radio networks. In fact, he went on the NBC Blue and Red network. Back then it was divided into two. The Red network would become ABC down the road. But they said the stock fundamentals are strong, keep investing, don't sell. I mean, they're worried about this tumbling. Andrew Mellon went on the radio, the Secretary of the Treasury, and did the same thing. But anybody want to guess what Mellon was telling his traders on the floor as he's telling people have faith in the stock market? What is he telling them to do in secret? Sell, 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 which by definition is a massive conflict of interest. He's using his knowledge in government to make money because he's there. He wouldn't be the only time. And so then Monday they went back, and Monday was horrible. You know things are bad when you have Black Thursday followed by Black Monday, and we're not done yet. Stock values dropped by nearly 13%. Absolute panic on the night of Monday. Banks, I mean, literally shudders, because banks are thinking, oh no. we're not only going to get, maybe get our loans we made paid out. Do you remember margin calls, where banks were loaning to buy stock? Banks were loaning money to people. The banks would give 90%, and the investors only had to put 10% down. But the collateral was the value of the stock, and as long as the collateral or the stock stayed at the level when they made the loan, you're fine. But if it drops 13%, that means the people who borrowed the money had to make what's called a margin call. They had to come up with that difference. And we're talking millions, if not billions of dollars. They had to come up to make up the difference. Did they have that money? No. Banks are panicking. A lot of banks, the owners are going, okay, here's what we're going to do. Fill up that bag with cash, and we're leaving tomorrow if the stock market crashes. We're out the door. Just going. By the way, where did the banks get the money to loan? Where did they get that money from? Yeah, depositors. Now, they also borrowed money too. Depositors. It's all out. It's gone. They don't have the money for the depositors, and they know it. And so, the next morning on Tuesday, it started out okay. Actually, the first indications were that the values were going up. And then overnight, it started with a couple of investment banks. They started selling. And then selling turned into sell. And then sell. And then sell. And then the cry became to sell everything. In fact, the story was it was nothing but sell, sell, sell. And once everybody started to sell, what happened to the price of all stocks, even healthy companies? What happened? Right down. And the thing was, nobody had information. Back then, everything was connected by telegraph line. And a telegraph line would connect these little printing machines that would print these little thin pieces of paper called ticker tape. And these ticker tape, this little piece of paper, it would have the value of all the stocks being traded on Wall Street. So you keep track. And you have to go through the alphabetical order, start from numbers to Z, and just kind of then go through and look. And this is what it looked like. Here are the numbers. So this is actually ticker tape from 1929. And if you ever look at stock or companies today, if you ever see it selling on the stock market, you'll notice they always have three-letter, now they have 4 too, but 3-letter abbreviations for corporations. That comes from ticker tape machines so they can print it and save space on the paper. So that's, they just would read that. Well, they started selling so fast and started inputting numbers so fast that the lines froze and went dead. And so brokers and investment bankers are waiting this ticker tape from straight on Wall Street. It's going down, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down, blank. And they just freaked out. It's over. I mean, just imagine if you think, oh, everything's going horrible, and now there's no news. What would be your first indication, or what would be your first reaction? Remember I told you in a boom, everyone's optimistic. What happens when it's a bust? It's all over. And then the panicky sales turned into a stampede. By the way, what did they do with all these little strips of paper? Saved it. I'll show you why in a sec. Eventually, 60 million shares were sold. Now, that's not that many today because we have computers. But back then, that was unheard of. Actually, it was over 60 million shares. And in just a few days, 15,000 miles of ticker tape was printed on that day. On that day alone. No, you don't need to know that factor. I just put it up there so I didn't forget to tell you. But here's a biggie. So just in the last week of October, $16 billion in paper profits were lost. People thought the stock was worth this much, and it tumbled that much. Tumbled $16 billion. That meant that money that people thought they had was gone. Stocks that they were using for collateral to buy homes, to buy yachts, or whatever it might be, gone. How are they going to pay that back? Banks who thought they had wealth in stock, and they can't pay back the loans, will they pay back in stock? Well, they're being paid back in worthless assets. The whole thing fell apart like that. Those are people milling outside of Wall Street that afternoon, basically in shock of what just happened. Like, is our life over? Is everything ruined? But what did they do with these? If you ever heard the term ticker tape parade, that's where it comes from. So in New York City, they would do parades down Fifth Avenue, but it's also called the Avenue of the Americas. That's what, because they have all the American heroes will have their parade. Charles Lindbergh went through in the biggest one ever. What did they do with the ticker tape? They drop it down so it makes those nice long spirals going down for the parade as you drop them from the skyscrapers. So here is Amelia Earhart in her parade in 1936, the great aviator. In fact, this is when she flies solo across the Atlantic after Lindbergh, but she died a couple years later. I don't know if she disappeared over the Pacific. These are the Mercury Astronauts, the first U.S. astronauts, and that's John Glenn. John Glenn's parade, but all the astronauts were with him. He's the first American to orbit the Earth. Now they don't use ticker tape, obviously, but they still make it for parade, just to waste all the paper and clean up. But it's pretty cool, all those things spiraling down. Back to this. So here's a great cartoon from 1929. I love this one. So here's the ticker tape machine, and it's a stock boom. Hurrah for the boom! I want to buy stocks will never go down. So they're joking about what I told you in 29. Here, everything has gone smash. I'm going to sell whatever I can't get, or whatever I can get. As in, it's all over. It's amazing how this euphoria would turn to absolute despair. Here's the most famous newspaper article from the Hollywood actors kind of newspaper, Hollywood Lays an Egg, and here. But here's one of my favorite ones. Raleigh at close, cheers brokers. Bankers are still optimistic. Buy, buy, buy. The suckers market. There'd be a few more suckers market, but the stock market would not reach those numbers again until the late 1960s. So at that. So this is the percentage drop. This is actually this is the index of New York Times stock prices. They don't really use that as an indication much, but another ratio to give you an idea how much stocks would drop. And these are the largest daily percentage stock drops in history. Don't read too much on like the biggest one leads to the biggest crash. 87, there would be a minor crash at 87. We still had a lot of the controls on. This was just the first really big wave of speculation after the 1980s tax cuts in 87. A 22% drop. But it didn't quite lead to the panic because there were still a lot of controls on that are gone now. So if we had this now, I don't want to think about it. But it's actually kind of amazing. So here's the 29 drops. You see the second biggest one? Guess the date? Does that date sound familiar? Almost exactly 2 years ago. What happened almost exactly 2 years ago? The announcement of the pandemic, also no one had any idea how bad it would be, how contagious it was, and they shut everything down, and what happened? And that could have turned out to be horrible. The Federal Reserve pumped trillions of dollars in the banks. So it kept it from going incredibly bad. This is the 2008 one, October 15th. That would lead to a long depression. So those are the crashes. Now, the recession was always going on, but this is the financial panic. And almost immediately, banks shut their doors. And if you had a bank after a crash like this, would you be willing to loan to anybody? Would you trust anybody if you survived? The amazing thing about a boom, everybody trusts everybody. We're all going to get rich together too. I don't trust anything you have. Your collateral is worthless to me. So, thus the Great Depression. There's no set definition of a depression. It just means long-term unemployment. That's the really big element. So in your lifetime, by all rational thought, from 2008 to 2014 was a depression. Unemployment remained very high. There was a little bit of government action that stopped the free fall, but then government spending froze in 2010. And so it just kind of remained this long kind of doldrums, bad economy. That's what you spent most of your early childhood in. Isn't that exciting? Let's see, you were 4 when that crash hit. Does that sound about right? 3 or 4? Are you 2004 or 2003? I know I've asked this before. Are you 4 or 5? Who's 4? A few. Who's 5? 6? 8? 12? All right. So, by the end of the year, from October to the end, 25 billion in paper losses. And this is going to ripple to everything. Everything. Also, production dropped by 1/3. It literally was already bad, but companies were losing profits, and then the whole thing fell apart. No one could get loans to continue production. Big business borrows money every single day. Every single day. They did it then, they do it even more now. Billions of dollars. It's called the paper market. They borrow one day. They borrow money. They borrow in the morning. They pay it back at night. Every single day. Just froze. Just froze. Same thing froze in 2008. And so companies couldn't produce. They couldn't meet payrolls. They couldn't meet their suppliers, etc. Auto sales dropped by 1/3. Now let's look at what happens if you have auto sales dropping. So much of the 1920s economy was based upon the sale of cars. Consumers buying cars. Now, I think, well, why just cars? There's lots of things being sold. Think about how cars change the economy. What does it require? What does it require? Think about everything to own and drive a car. What do you need? To sell a car, to produce a car, what do you need? Say it again. You need an entire system set up to take petroleum out of the ground, and you can't just pump that into engines. Well, you can, but it won't work. And then you have to have refineries. You have to have a system, either pipelines or rail cars or something to get from the wells to the refineries, and the refineries, some way to distribute it. Steel, copper, aluminum, which is really energy intensive to produce, really energy intensive, but you need it because it's light. What else do you need? Yeah, roads just don't happen. And there were no roads anywhere. Nothing more than tracks. No modern roads except for in big cities. They had to make all of that. Which, by the way, that's what the government did. That's a massive aid. There would be no car industry if taxpayers did not say, hey, we're going to make roads. And what do you need to make roads? You have to, there will be a road and it appears. You have to have all kinds of earth moving equipment. That's going to have to be invented. You have to have engineers and pretty intense education process. You're going to have some kind of something to make the roads out of. The cement industry would take off. Blacktop eventually, all kinds of things. I think you get the point there. What else do you need? Leather, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of workers. You have to be organized in marshals and places to live and food to eat and etc. What else do you need? Yes.
Plastics.
Yeah. The development, rubber first, but then plastic. Rubber for tires. The plastic industry, which would be invented in the United States out of petroleum, because it's so expensive to get rubber. And yes, they would sell big cartels through Nazi Germany. We have lots of stories of that too down the road. But what else do you need? Gas stations, mechanics, shops. People drive on the highways now, so what do you need? Yeah, tow trucks, which all had to be invented. Yes?
Laws.
An entire system of laws and organization and a police force to enforce the laws. You need things like traffic lights, stop sign, all those things had to be invented and made, and workers. If people drive down the road and they get hungry, what do you need? You know, restaurants and things like that. What if they get too tired to drive anymore? What do you need? A hotel for motorists, a motor hotel, motel. That's where that term comes from, motor hotel. You need all of that. If car sales drop by 1/3, what happens? So what happens if, let's say, Akron, Ohio, where they make tires? 1931, over 50% unemployment. So you can imagine how this is going to ripple to every part of the economy. Every single part. Let's go and finish this up. By 1932, The entire size of the economy shrunk by a third. Money supply shrunk by a third. So here's the GDP. This is in $2,000. Don't worry about it. All we care about is the percentage drop. By the way, you see the beginnings of the New Deal, the Roosevelt recession, New Deal, and then World War II. 9,000 banks failed. Oh, by the way, money supply, that means prices drop by a third. You might think, great, prices drop by a third. Well, what's going to happen to the stores? They're going to lose money. How do they pay back their debt? Farmers will be crushed. And who cares how low the prices are if you don't have a job? 9,000 banks. And what happens if you had savings in that bank? What happened to the money? And we're not even to the worst time. Unemployment rate was about 25%. It's really hard to find unemployment now because it doesn't count every worker. It usually understates it a little bit. It doesn't count farmers, but unemployment was incredibly high. Here's technically the official rate, and here's the official. Here is modified because they didn't count jobs that were like created by the government, like building dams or bridges or roads. They had a weird way to figure it out. Now we do because it's a job and you're getting paid. But so the point is a horrific depression. What caused it and what made it so bad? And I should add, every depression has similarities. The boom bust cycle always happens time after time after time. But no, it's really hard to figure out. It's important to know the causes. Now, we can disagree or agree, we as in like a society, on which ones are more important or less important. But it's really important to not only get out of depression if it happens, but hopefully you can avoid one down the road. But you could have disagreements, and these are big policy issues when it comes to supply side or demand side economics. So, overproduction, we've talked about this before, but this was a facet of trickle-down economics. If trickle-down economics is to pump money as much as possible to the hands of the wealthy so they produce more, well, they're going to produce more. So here is a great lot of all the used cars. But the big three, cars, of course, wave of construction. New York City, the big cities especially, construction booms and construction bubbles a lot of time will predate these recessions. We saw this in 2005, 2006. Right now, with housing prices the way they are, my guess is we're going to have a massive boom in construction. And probably that's when we might see where a bubble will happen. We'll just start producing in areas that would be more than what the market can bear. That's what happened in places like Las Vegas in 2005. And consumer electronics, but personified by the thing everybody had to have. You had to sit around and watch the radio. So with that, so prices drop, profits drops. By the way, when I say sit around and watch the radio, whenever you see people in the 20s and 30s, or even today, they listen to the radio if they're not driving a car, what do? You sit and stare at the radio, because what else are you going to look at? And so with that, prices drop, profits drop. Do you remember the boom bust cycle? We had overproduction, and I gave you that. I kind of showed out one like this. What do they call that curve? Do you remember? Yeah, that's the deflationary curve. Deflationary. Inflationary is when prices are going up. And so with that, what does everyone do first? They produce more. The same thing's going to happen with speculation. They're going to, profits are dropping. Let's speculate more, double down, let's make more money. And then there's going to be cutbacks and layoffs. So this is that boom bust cycle. I mean, we're in a hiring boom right now. And we'll see where that goes. Demand tanks. Sales drop. I think this is the basic every time. No, it's not easy to figure out when exactly that happens. Could it just be a momentary blip or the bust? And so that's why you had a recession by the summer of 29. It was already happening. So companies were already having trouble making their payments. Companies were already closing their doors. There were already layoffs by that fall, before the entire credit market froze. So that's overproduction. It's kind of a review, but think about it in terms of how much impact just car sales dropping, how much impact that happens. And I like this one. This is a cartoon from 32, and I think this is very clever. So the economy's booming in 28, the Rolls Royce, the motorcycle sidecar, to a little bike by 32. That's a pretty clever cartoon. Also very dark and kind of sad. In 1932, the most popular song of the year 1932 was "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime?" Times were bad. And so, to over-speculation. And the allure of speculation is huge. All of us want to get rich quick. I know I said that already, but I can't emphasize that enough. That is why after the New Deal, they passed a series of laws to make speculation more difficult, with the idea being to avoid this boom. Most of these regulations, especially during the Clinton administration, they would all be gone now. And it's kind of ironic if most of the regulations came about in a Democratic administration and ended in a Democratic administration. But tax cuts were not going to production. The 26 tax cuts, these huge tax cuts that remember Mellon got $800,000 alone. They were supposed to go to production and trickle down. No, they're going to speculation. They're going to buy real estate. They're going to buy stocks and bonds. So they weren't trickling down. And by 1929, now this is normal. The top 1% own 99% of the stock. Now, by definition, speculation is going to be by people with extra money, aka wealthy. Just the way it is. Poor people have a very difficult time speculating because the majority of their money goes to crazy things like food and shelter. So speculation is the tool of people with more money. In fact, this was why the populists wanted a progressive income tax. Because they said there will be too much incentive for those who are very wealthy to take that tax cut and try to make more money off of it and not invest. Starting a business is very difficult. So, it's about 1% owns about 2/3 of the stock today. And the reason why is a lot of people, myself included, my wife and I have money in retirement accounts. And those retirement accounts are usually in the stock market, usually mutual funds in the stock market. So I have a tiny little bit of stock, as some of you personally might have a tiny little bit. You might have a lot, I don't know, but I'm just guessing. But most of the stock is owned by the very top because that's just the definition of speculation. And there's that real estate bubble. And you see this huge real estate bubble happen in New York City. I'm actually really curious to see what's going to happen in New York City real estate right now. Because so much of the really expensive real estate was bought up by Russian organized crime or oligarchs. And what's going to happen if they have to sell it off? I'm really curious to see what happens from a distance. Literally just a bunch of empty buildings that had to launder their illegal money. So with that, and then the stock market bubble. So we have the two big bubbles that were happening. And this gave people the illusion they had a lot more money than they actually did. And the big thing is this. The crash exposed all of that debt. All of that debt. People were borrowing money to buy stock. People were borrowing money, or banks were borrowing money to loan money. Banks were borrowing money to loan money to loan money, and so on and so on and so on. And it really was, in many ways, speculation creates a house of cards. And so just imagine if you build a whole stack of cards and pull one card out in the middle, the whole thing falls. And that's exactly what's going to happen in 1929. Once one group of people can't pay back their debts, it will ripple to the entire world's economy. The same exact thing happened in 2008. And so, let's get to number 3. And this exposed another massive problem. The huge inequalities, the gap between rich and the poor. Now, once again, this is trickle-down economics working exactly the way trickle-down economics was supposed to. Put money to the hands of the wealthy, and then they would invest. Well, let's not even worry about the investment part. If it's to put money in the hands of the wealthy, it works very well. The top 1%, the top 1% had, the top 0.1%, had about 25% of the wealth in 1929. And not even, I don't care, I mean, people can make moral arguments, whether that's good or bad. I'm just talking pure raw economics. If 25% of the money is owned by 0.1% of the population, they're not going to buy that much stuff. How many cars are they rationally going to buy? How many radios? How many homes? Not that many. If Ford's putting out 5 million cars a day, who's going to buy the cars if the money is in the hands of just a few? And think about, remember, banks shutting their doors, borrowing money. Where's it going to go? But that is, I can't emphasize this enough. This was policy. Now, you could say this is good policy or bad policy, but it was working exactly the way it was. And yes, this was the era of Mellonism or monopolies. Also the era of finance. Think about speculation. Remember I said that, 1% of the stock's owned by 90%? If you're a member of that 1% and you're buying stock, who are you buying the stock from? What kind of person? The same group. The very wealthy. Who's making the money? In speculation, the money just circulates, or the velocity is, on just the people buying and trading stock. And that's what finance is. Buying and trading a stock is most of it. And it's just in the very top. And they're making money up there, but it's not getting down to the stories, it's not getting to what they would say then is the Main Street. The small businesses or the stores on the in Peoria or Helena. And this stifles them. Economically, the gap between the rich and the poor is a ticking time bomb. Because eventually, those in the bottom will quit buying things. They won't be able to afford it, they won't be able to get loans, and therefore it kills demand. If you already have overproduction, and you have a group of people that are on the edge of not being able to afford it, all it takes is a couple changes and boom, that could ripple to every part of the economy. The vast majority of the population at this time was making less than $2,000 a year. The poverty rate, half the population was making less than $750 a year. This is an economic ticking time bomb. Gap between the rich and the poor kills the man. Now, there might be other problems like those on top, which will use their money to control government, or it also shows that this is how the economic engine works and it's a great incentive to get wealthy. All kinds of things you can say, but there's no doubt about this. That is a dangerous point. I have no idea how high it is now. The pandemic, though, the 0.1% has got so much wealth because of that. It's hard to even wrap my mind around it. I can't. Trillions of dollars went to the top 0.1%. So it's got to be up here somewhere. So this is a cartoon from 1930, and it's showing that it's supposed to be working people and the wealthier, and more money's going to the top. So with that, you combine with a financial failure. And the financial failure would be huge. So when I talk about the entire financial system, the Federal Reserve Bank was brand new. And even though they're coming with some very creative ways to put money into the economy or take money out, this financial failure would be big. But there was no real regulation. The regulations that existed were not enforced. The Federal Reserve had some power, but the regulation it could use would not be to the New Deal. And so there's no real control. So what that meant is banks were making incredibly risky loans. Now, banks always make risky loans. What's the advantage? Why would a bank make a risky loan? What's the advantage of that to a bank? Yeah, higher interest rates. There's money in that. But they're making risky loans. Reserves are the amount of money that banks keep in their deposits on hand. Every state there was a hodgepodge of rules. Banks were crossing state lines all the time, and so banks didn't have reserves. So they're making risky loans and have money in reserve and no money in reserve. If the banks fail, there's nothing to hold it up. They have no money. And this happened in 2008. There were no reserves in this thing called credit default swaps. Just no reserves, whole thing fell apart. So on that happy note, well, remember on the house of debt. I should look at the formula again.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. And don't forget, for some of you, if you, especially if you see me on your DBQ, you need to see me real quick, and I'll talk to you about it. Because I want to get, clean that up and do better on that. Yeah, you guys need to take that quiz too. It'll take you. You're going to take all lunch and then after school.
I'm sticking on.
It takes you more 2 minutes after shot.
Sounds good.
So, let me give you another thing. You want to do extra credit movie? Here is an extra credit movie.
Wow. Okay. And for this quiz, can we take that after? Like,
Yeah, just take it out. It takes 5 minutes.
Okay, and then would that be like when we come back to school? Okay. Yeah.
Sound good? And there'll be another one like 10 or 12 questions.
Okay.
Fellow or B or me or no, what is fellow? Is it fellow uniform French? How do you say fancy French? Guapo.
Oh, I have gifts! I have gifts for all of you because I care so much about you as human beings. Gifts, gifts, gifts. Everybody come up and grab one. Only one. I know what these are worth on the black market. Gifts.
Oh. Yeah, you know that. He turned the corner. He paid us.
I'm like in a plan.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Oh,
it's only 2 bullets. Is it bullets?
so nice. He told Peyton about that country.
Oh, really?
Peyton knew about it.
Oh, we gotta start inside jobs.
Oh, I'm going to be gone Thursday and Friday.
And you were gone yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't
Huh.
know
Wait.
so.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all very disappointed. Where are you going?
We're going to Egypt. Oh my god.
Really?
Yeah, I've never actually been to Egypt.
Well, neither have I.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
How long are you gonna be there?
Until after spring break. Yeah, I don't know, actually. 10 days.
Are you just making this up?
No, I actually going. I'm gonna be there for 10 days.
Are you gonna take a tour then, or?
Yeah, we're getting a guide from Merc Steve's, like whoever they recommend. My dad has it figured all out. It's we have an agenda, and we're going to Cairo.
You have an agenda.
We do have an agenda. It's very fancy. I've never been part of the agenda before.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory, doesn't it? The agenda.
So, yeah.
Oh, so and through Rick Steve, you know Rick Steve.
Yeah. Me too. My mom lives in. Yeah. Well, I don't know if Rick Steve's. It's like Rick Steve recommends him because he's not
Sure.
gonna have like a dude in Egypt.
A dude?
Yeah, they usually have dudes, man. Not like guy dudes. Just dudes as in people. Because last time the dude was a girl. Well, a woman. Like when I say dude, I don't mean a man.
Dude, just keep talking. I'm enjoying this.
mean,
I think I'm still recording this, so this is broadcast
a
out.
dude can be a woman or a man.
Huh.
It's like a
That's
generalization.
science.
It is science. It's part of evolution in the stock market. So yeah. I will be kind of busy over the break, but I don't think there's that much work, so I think I should get it all done. However, if there is anything Thursday and Friday via Teams I have to turn in, is there anything I have to turn in via Teams?
No, I'm going to do a quiz on Thursday or Friday, just a reading quiz on chapter 25. and you'll do it when you get back.
Okay.
It'd be like a 10 or 12 question little match.
And will it be bad if I do when I get back for it being in third quarter? I won't take a 0 for third quarter for not doing it on Thursday, Friday.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry. We'll make it work.
Okay.
It'll be on your permanent record. It'll follow you for the rest of your life that you skip that quiz. You try to get a job and say, oh,
You skip
no.
that quiz.
Yes.
Opening cranium with saw and not hammer.
Wait.
Bold step forward. Bold step.
Well, that's on a good time. So your job is show me some pictures.
Okay.
I would like to go to Egypt. We talked about it, and then actually we talked about it, my wife and I, a few years ago, and then there was a little revolution going on.
Yeah, my mom's actually a little nervous, but like, I think we'll be fine.
Hey, you've been to Eastern Montana. You've been to Billings.
Yeah, man, I've seen it
There's
all.
dudes there.
Yeah, there
There's
are
dudes everywhere.
there.
There's dudes.
Crazy.
Well, that sounds like a really good trip.
No, I'm really comfortable.
Does everyone make an order? We got to bring stuff back from Egypt. So that's gonna be fun.
You bring back.
Oh, I can't bring back.
Yeah, just a small pyramid.
Yeah.
We don't need the great pyramid.
Yeah, I'll grab a.
Pyramid, so that's one thing. I do want to go to Egypt. That's one of the reasons I took back Western Civ, so I can teach Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like teaching Egypt. Huh? Are you keeping calendar?
We were both in the bathroom waiting.
I track her.
Different tracker. All right, so. Where are you going to be? Oh, take a break. We got Mexico. What part of Mexico are you going to?
You can see
I've been to Playa.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he's going. Are you going to the same like area too, like hotel?
Why would you know these things?
Why
would
Mr. Ward give him that information?
Yeah, no kidding. I wouldn't want you to know where I'm at ever. So on Thursday and Friday, we're going to watch part of a video, and we're going to have a quiz on chapter 25 on Friday. If you're going to be gone, you just make it up in your mind. And it would be one of those like 10 or 12 questions, just a little quiz. The Great Depression is going to be cut in half by spring break, but that's the way life is. And, wow, you have homework over spring break. Quit whining. You're going. I hope you like airports.
Yeah.
Hmm? Yeah, you got a few hours on a plane. So, this is chapter 26. And you have to do chapter 26 on your own. And so jot down notes for each one, just bullet points and your own abbreviation, pack them in there, you'll get the basic element, date, etc. But yeah, we heard all about it. Yeah, we heard. Yeah, yeah. And so moving on. Should we just watch yourself? Okay. By the way, has anyone ever done that to you? That, yeah. I heard about it. Okay, so here's the thing. You're for the hot. What? That's all totalitarian states work. All I heard is you're in the AP US history book. But, so. I forgot what I was saying. Just turn it all in today.
Okay.
Jot down a few things. There's that. Now, it's not sentences. So what does it have to be written in? It's not sentences. Crayon, yes. Has to be in crayon. Pen or pencil or whatever. And because we got to do some World War II, these basics on your own. Now, this will be due on the Monday you get back. That's the way it is. The maps, I just gave it early. The maps won't be due to the end of the week after spring break. But I was talking about with first period, and a few of them said, can we just get the maps now because we might have time? So this will be due at the end of the week, like Thursday or Friday after spring break.
The Monday is the second.
This is Monday. I don't know the exact date. The 40th I think it's the 40th of April. Is it the 4th, really?
Yeah, this Saturday's the second.
Star Wars.
That's April.
It's gonna be April.
It's April.
Oh my god.
Spring break is not a month and a half. So so first period, just some students that asked for the map early, just in case you have time. So I just figured, oh heck, I'll just give it to everybody. So that's the map. And there will be an extra credit movie opportunity, and I'll give that tomorrow. And maybe one more opportunity, a little video, to fill out something called a job at Ford. And I'm kind of leaning that up in the air. I was going to give you one other thing, but I decided not to, because, just because. So, I have another gift. It's because I care. Actually, it is because I care, but it is work for you. It's beneficial work. I don't know if you know this, but there's an AP exam next this. This is the review time.
Basic.
Wait a minute, only 3 days after
Yeah.
No.
That's a valid one. Okay, I know your first response is, it's not thick enough. I agree. No, I didn't do it with the World War II one. I don't know why I didn't, because I know this is a good thing. I stole it from somebody. But I like the little weird shaped boxes for big review. And I know it's a lot. But like I said this yesterday before the AP exam, or I'm sorry, when they gave out the DBQ. For the AP exam. Like for example, the DBQ is going to be on some topic between 1763 and 1980. That's a huge area. And so we got to go back and review. And so what you can do on this one is using bullet points, and you're have to figure out ways to be creative, to put in the date, just the year. You don't need to put the year, and then create, write things in. You're going to have to, go back and review this. And so I reward you immensely for this. This is 2 test scores or 400 points for this. So I really reward you. And when I go back and grade it, I'm not going to sit and read each one because these are your notes. The big thing is I'll pick ones to make sure that you're putting real things down. Yes, I've had people try to write down, stuff happens, stuff happens, stuff happens. I'm sure they had a big kick out of it. I got a laugh. They got a 0. But we got to do it. And when we do review sessions, which we'll do those at the end of April into May, and we'll see where we're going to be. Right now, the Omicron variant is sinking. It looks like who knows what's going to happen. Just in time for Omicron variant 2, which has even more mutations, is coming. And for example, China is basically shutting down right now. And this is blowing up in Europe. Now, it's mostly affecting people who are unvaccinated or didn't get the booster, but still, it's happening. We'll see. If it hits here in the end of April, which if it hits, it'll hit then, another fun wave, we might do the review session on Teams like we had to last year. If that doesn't happen, I might do grab the auditorium so we get all 3 classes together, and then I'll answer any question you have. And it's a great way to review, because you can go back and ones you're not sure about, I answer. You can jot things down if you fill out the review packet, and even if you have it, it makes you think about it and review it. No, I don't expect you to memorize. I know that's not the way it's going to be. But if this helps trigger memories when you're actually taking the test. If you see a question and you're like, you're doing that review packet, okay, and got it. It helps immensely. Talking to students in the past, yes, they all complain about doing it. I would have complained too. But they all said it helped a lot. Immensely. It made them feel so much better when they come in and take a test. You think about that AP exam. It's a 4-hour test. You're going to get tired, you're going to forget stuff, you're going to be nervous, especially if you have 2 other AP tests that week or something. And it's parade day. And so this helps. So they divided up the College Board into unit or periods. It's period 1, you see it up on top, 1491 to 1607. I don't divide it up like this because things all mesh together. It doesn't quite work in nice neat little periods. But just for this, I put it in here because it gives you an idea. They say about 5%. So there may be 1 or 2 questions about this. You know, it's 10%. But then we get to period 6, and it's 13%. Period 7, it's 17% of the exam. God, what is 17%? So what you have to do, for sure, it will be due on May, the test is May 6th, so May 5th, you have to be done to period 6. This has to be completed. You'll turn that in. And one more period. Period 9. 1 through 6 and period 9. I will probably assign parts of period 7, but I'm leaving that open right now because I'm not sure exactly how much. Period 8, since that'll be the last unit we cover, and that'll be fresh, the most fresh in your mind, I'm not going to assign that. But I put it on there so you know what we need to know, and if you fill it out and complete it, I'll give you extra credit for completing it. Am I happy with that? I know it's a lot of work. I reward you, I help you, I go through it. It really does help. Especially when you start doing those, essays. You're tired already, you forget stuff. It'll help you recall. It'll trigger memories. And when you go back and come with bullet points related to other stuff, this led to this, you relate it to other things so it connects. And if you look at this, we covered a lot of these in class, almost all of them. Okay, your first glance you forgot. But as soon as you start looking back at your notes, you'll remember. And this is where the review book comes in handy. You need to look up something very quick. The review book has briefly on everything. That review book I gave you. And also after the AP exam, I'll start assigning some multiple choice. Just track these multiple choice. All right? Any questions? When is it due? Yeah, have to be done. Easy points, but worth it. It'll help you with the test. Do you want me to make it thicker? It actually does help when you got to kind of figure out ways. What if, oh, by the way, what does that have to be written in? One more time. All in crayon. Yeah, all in crayon. Pencil or pen. Blue or black pen, please. I'm old. Okay. Oh, and I want it handwritten. Not touch. I want it handwritten. Typing, you don't recall as well. Handwritten. So, you generally humans. Okay, so stock market is invincible. Let's get to this. Did I show you this one yesterday? So, the boom is hit. Oh, what was the name of Mellon? Who was Andrew Mellon? What was he for 3 presidents? Yeah, and he was also one of the wealthiest investment bankers, one of the wealthiest men in America. And trickle down meant government should have what kind of people?